the first testings started of nuclear warfare. So this is something that's very interesting because apparently these green fireballs, and some of them have been described as sort of like a comet. The other ones have been described as almost like orbs with somewhat of an intelligence, an intelligent entity almost, I guess. And so there's been a lot of people study these. They started popping up again all over the world just recently. 3 years ago 4 years ago now, in 2018, was the first time they had made a comeback since quite a few years prior. So, it says green fireballs are a type of unidentified flying object that has been reported since the early 1950s. Early sightings primarily occurred in the southwestern United States, particularly in New Mexico. Again, that makes sense because Los Alamos was their White Sands missile range. Although some ufologists and organizations consider them to be of artificial extraterrestrial origin. Mainstream, non-pseudoscientific explanations have been provided, including natural bolides. So there's a lot of different theories on this. One of the earliest observations was in 1948 in New Mexico. Now the UFO crash, was in 1947 in July. So this was a year later. Reports from 2 plane crews, 1 civilian, 1 military, on the night of December 5th, 1948, they described the observed fireballs as a bright green ball of fire and like a huge green meteor. Now, these were aerial observations, so the people weren't on the ground. That was from... says on December 8th, another aerial observation was reported by 2 pilots. And in a letter to the U.S. Air Force dated December 20th, Lincoln La Paz, an astronomer from the University of New Mexico, wrote that the observed objects were atypical of meteors. On January 13th, 1949, the director of Army Intelligence from 4th Army Headquarters in Texas wrote that the green fireballs may be the result of radiological warfare experiments by a foreign power, and that they are of such great importance, especially as they are occurring in the vicinity of sensitive installations, that a scientific board should study this situation. Now, there's been numerous scientific boards, obviously, study this phenomenon over the years. But they went back to calling it weather balloons, calling it all kinds of different things. There is a light phenomenon, lightning, electricity, things like that. They've been caught even recently, in the most recent years, on people's dash cams in other countries. So they do. Everybody did agree that it was something of natural origin. They didn't know what back then. So they considered the one near Alamogordo, New Mexico, after, of course, their initial investigations. Later it came out that it was just an ordinary meteor. Okay. More recently, they've been observed in Japan and Australia. Now, along with, the meteor theory, the bolide theory, space particles, things like that, atomic weapon tests, clouds of nuclear fallout, lunar material ejected from meteor impacts off the moon's surface, aircraft associated with secret military projects. Those are all the theories they have. And so the timeline of this kind of goes back as far as it's also been seen or kind of described in various places. if you could assign colors in hieroglyphics and such, it's been seen in other situations on historical markings. So that's interesting as well. But these things only show up in or around places where there has been nuclear testing or radiation is present. So, or that's the coincidence anyways. So going back to the ones recently seen. I mean, the one in New Mexico, they interviewed over 100 witnesses. That tells you how many people they couldn't, this one couldn't be covered up. And so it was the opinion of everyone there. The Atomic Energy Commission thought that the fireballs were likely either top secret, unconventional defensive devices being tested by the U.S. or, quote, Soviet spying devices, which is interesting because this is all also documented a little bit in the Project Blue Book files of the UFO investigations. So Edward J. Ruppel, the director of the U.S. Air Force Project Blue Book investigations, visited the Los Alamos National Laboratory in early 1952, and he interviewed a lot of the scientists and technicians there, and he noted that they became particularly animated when the idea of interplanetary vehicles were suggested. So I don't know. Particularly animated is kind of funny to me when dealing with anything of secretive matter then. So his own theory was that they were a ball of lightning, which he believes fits the description of the New Mexico fireballs, electrified air. Now, this has come up numerous times because we've had people on Chasing that, I think it was just last week, actually, we had Marty on the show, and he was talking about the lightning balls that follow, that show up during storms and kind of follow, along railroad tracks, things like that. But some of them have been reported to have an almost intelligent interaction with its surroundings. So, Dr. Hughes, stating that this was like a electrified air phenomenon, he said, it occurred to me sometimes when something shoots through the atmosphere, like a meteor, it could be creating a conductive pathway from the ionosphere, a whole ocean of plasma above the earth, down to the ground. The air becomes electrified. The phosphorescent green color, he said, is due to the ionized oxygen, which also accounts for the striking grains of the aurora borealis, also known as the northern lights. So that was his theory. When the UFO theory buzzed around the White House and the Air Force, they blamed the weather. So, I mean, really, we blame the weather for everything, right? And then the other theory, the next one was the Cold War spycraft or extraterrestrial probes. So these sightings, though, continued in 2018. They had them on December, and it's interesting, these are all during the fall time period as far as the most recent ones, through the spring, through April, May timeline. Now, back in the early 50s and during the 47, 48 time period, obviously that was in the summer. So this one being, these were sighted on December 6th, 7th, 8th, 11th, 13th, 14th, 20th, and 28th. December 20th proved a turning point, literally, and particularly alarming for those clinging to the theory that these were meteors. The balls of fire descended from the heavens at a 45-degree angle, then abruptly leveled off into a gravity-defying horizontal flight path. So, as La Paz noted in a letter he sent to the district commanding officer of the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigations, None of the green fireballs has a train of sparks of a dust cloud, which would be indicative of a meteorite. So in the years since, there's been sightings from around the world. Alberta, Canada, 2018, a green fireball made an impressive appearance at a concert performance in the Netherlands by the Foo Fighters, coincidentally. The band named for the U.S. pilot's term for UFOs during World War II. According to the International Meteor Organization, there were more than 170 reported sightings of the fireballs that night. In at least 5 European countries, the band's reaction, according to their official Twitter account, was the sky is a neighborhood. So why is this relevant, you ask? Well, because Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins was found dead in his hotel 2 days ago. They had another concert, and the interesting thing, when I was printing off the information about him, my last printout, which was completely irrelevant, ended with, I don't know, oh, wait a minute. You can see this, 666. Oh, hold on. There we go. It was just a page with 2 lines and 666 on it. Now, obviously, no, I don't mean that in association with, the devil or anything. To me, 666 in alchemy is the number for human or man. But as far as Taylor Hawkins goes, now there were reports at the hotel that somebody had called about a man complaining of chest pains. And this is interesting because I know of, including myself, numerous people in the paranormal investigation field or the UFO investigation field who have seen orbs or green or glowing lights like this in multiple different locations and have had either chest pains or a legitimate, health problem because of it. Not necessarily, nobody knows if it's because of it, as a direct consequence to them being within the range of these lights, but it happened in or around the same time. So I know with as far as I go, my experience, I often tell people the times that, one of the main times that I had a heart attack, but right prior to, I saw this bright glowing light. It was not neon. I don't remember a color. However, there are times when rainbows have been reported off of what look like metal-like objects. I mean, during the day too. I have pictures of these. I wish I could show them on here. One day I'll figure all of this technology out here. But these rainbow, it was kind of a reflection showing up, and nobody knows. It's not like a rainbow from a storm. These were rainbow, not really holographic type images, but an actual rainbow. And around that area, the electricity and the electromagnetic energy was at a much higher rate, and would often give people, they would have tight feelings in their chest, heart arrhythmia, things like that. So I think it's interesting that now they did find, and Taylor Hawkins, they did have a toxicology report done, and there were numerous different substances in his body. But again, I don't know if that's, it hasn't been reported as to whether or not those were things that he took on a normal basis. A lot of them were psychiatric type drugs. So I'm not going to speculate on that part of it. However, the coincidental, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't, I wasn't on anything the times that this happened to me, or I would assume that the times it's happened to other people in the investigative fields as well. And maybe sometime I should have all of them on, like the same show, so we can collaborate and see, what's going on with that. But I think that, let's see, I'm trying to, just trying to see the comments there. So with the Taylor Hawkins thing, that's a huge, I mean, I don't believe in coincidences. So there's something to that. Now, one of the interesting theories, I mean, they've had antimatter, light bubbles, microwave interference, retinal after images, electromagnetic knots, primordial black holes. That's an interesting one. Hovering orbs of electricity that have only been taken seriously by science since the 60s. So, but if there were over 100 people at the Foo Fighters concert, the last, not this most recent one, at the one prior, then that's not something that can be taken lightly, because, and it keeps happening all over the world. And with anything, I mean, they're gonna consider it a weather conspiracy, whatever. Los Alamos happened. They had a time, 2 a.m. They were talking about it in Santa Fe, so all the way to Santa Fe. And people, I guess it became so common and such a, so many witnesses that they would just ask everyone, have you seen the green light lately? So what it says is the most alarming with the U.S. government and unnerving is that the ones in Russia that were spotted were near Vector, which is one of the largest testing facilities. I think that's more chemical based, however. Now, the ones here were all concentrated around the Sandia Atomic Weapon Laboratories, other highly sensitive installations, including radar stations, fighter interceptor bases, all of that not being far away. So, and of course, back then in the 50s, our military, they all thought, and scientists, they all thought it was a foreign spy device, whereas everybody here in other countries, I'm sure, thought the same thing. So, except opposite. So, where was Hawkins when he died? He was in Bogota. So, the 666 and why that's relevant. Recently, Hawkins co-starred in a film that was just released called Studio 666. So they say it's about a demonic force is in a house where the band is staying, and they seize one of the members and turn him into a murderous, homicidal maniac, basically. Hawkins and the other members of the band are killed one by one, and the premise came out of their work on their 10th studio album at a home in Los Angeles. So that's why I was shocked at the 666. I mean, things happen like that all the time, but again, our condolences go out to Hawkins and his family. He was survived by his wife Allison and their 3 children. So it's a very tragic thing to happen, but I think there's more to it than just a death of another band member. I think there's really something. I think they should start interviewing people that were there. I assume that more stories will come out about sightings of this most recent concert as well. Let's see. I'm trying to show your comment here. Do you think that the government is just testing new technology and then saying it's something else? Possibly. My theory, since this shows up, and this goes way back. I mean, this goes back to things outside of the government, odd things happening at their testing locations and military locations, meaning with their equipment. Documented occurrences of electrical phenomena, all kinds of different things happening that they were not, they had nothing to do with at these facilities. So if they're only showing up, if they're showing up anytime radiation or nuclear testing is present, that leads me to believe that it has nothing to do with humans. Maybe because if you think about it, and when humans start messing with things like radiation or nuclear warfare or anything like that, I'm pretty sure planet Earth is highly important to extraterrestrials as well. So they might not be coming to save us, but they're probably going to save the planet. That'd be a huge. We're not just affecting ourselves anymore when you're talking about nuclear warfare and radiation. That's something that obviously would expand to the entire universe in some way. So I think that's one of the biggest theories now, is that it's definitely something else, because why would it's almost like a warning, I guess they've said. Why would it show up during these specific times? Now, in the 1947, they talk about this in the, it's called Project Twinkle, which is a funny name for it. They talked about it was the Geophysics Research Division received directive to investigate peculiar light phenomenon that has been observed in the skies of the southwestern United States. They had, this is like an 8-page document you can get on the government website, but obviously these weren't released until within the last few years. So in the beginning, what I have a problem with these project documentations, though, they all say that it's been determined that most of them can be attributed to such man-made objects as airplanes, balloons, rockets, etc. Okay, we're not going back to the whole weather balloon theory. There's others have been attributed to natural phenomena, flying birds, small clouds, meteorites. Yes, I agree with that. In any type of, when people see or think they see paranormal things, a lot of times, many of them can be debunked. So I'm not referring to those, but they talk about the background of it, obviously. The Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which included Holloman Air Force Base and GRD personnel. They started calling it a light phenomenon. And it even included one theory, which I can almost, this one's interesting, that if they are in fact like lightning balls or balls of electricity, then they might seem to have an intelligence to them if they follow the natural, the world and the planet has kind of a natural electric grid line. So if these fireballs followed the natural electricity lines, and people are electric, so if there's people in that vicinity, then yes, it might be attracted to that as well as then that's why there's been video after video and proof and evidence of the blue lightning balls following when lightning strikes a tree or as I said before, the railroad tracks. So it's something they're considering putting, or back then anyways, they considered designating more funds to the research of this, only because of how much they were disturbed by the fact that it only, back then, it only came during the, it only showed up during the nuclear testing phases and things like that. So now, excuse me. Other theories were that the different glowing colors when these are witnessed, which it was this specific one has always been green, but other theories of this were that the color was just an after effect or an afterglow of a naturally occurring fireball. So I don't really believe that either, because the ones that are on camera, there's tons of YouTube videos of witness of people's dash cams and things catching these things on video, and none of them during the falling or whatever projected path they were on, they didn't dim, they didn't change color, they still remained green. So whatever it is, and yes, that's another theory as well. So with all that testing, could we have opened a portal of some kind that, given the right conditions, it periodically opens? Yes. So again, I spoke of this on Chasing Prophecy last week because I was talking about, I did a report, and maybe I will publish that on YouTube, a long time ago, about deaths that were considered suicides, because there's been different celebrities, different, and I'm not making any type of speculation. This isn't about that. It could be a naturally occurring electromagnetic phenomenon in the atmosphere, the person's environment. Absolutely. My heart does funny things when there's a full moon, for that matter. So I believe that as well. I'm not saying those are all attributed, but they all happen on specific days. So in my beliefs, there's portal days. And the reasons I aside from doing the research a few years ago on different times where you see more house fires, where you see more crime activity, when you see more car accidents that aren't your normal car accidents. There's, somebody just all of a sudden drives off a bridge, or how many I did a report on that too. I forgot about that. How many train conductors, it's like they completely lost all cognitive ability. I mean, as far as like speeding the train up to where it was unstoppable, or derailing it, things like that. It has been reported many times. And so it makes you wonder, yes, is this something that could in fact be a portal to either interdimensional beings or demonic, in that sense, to where they could possess somebody to do these things as far as crimes and just driving off a cliff and things like that? Or is it a naturally occurring electromagnetic phenomenon, but that would still be kind of a portal day? And it's always, in my experience, been listed between, I want to say, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd of most months. So, again, there's people, they don't really understand them either way. So black holes, that's another one of the theories. Again, my personal theory is because I have had channeled messages about this since I can remember, that we are not, as humans, to be messing with certain things that would harm the planet for literally 1,000 years, do irreparable damage. Because I do 100% believe, yes, somebody else is going to, or something else is going to step in to stop it. And I mean, I think that's what they're afraid of, because it's one thing, going up against each other as far as people or countries or whatever. But when there's other forces, at one time, the different governments have studied up to 80, 90 different, I guess, almost races of extraterrestrials. Now, I personally have been told that there's many more than that. So they do have findings. So if somebody ever, started researching all the dates, I might do this actually. I'm a photographer. So if I were to use different color spectrums and take picture, even without witnessing this light phenomenon, if I were to take pictures on these specific days or specific moon phases in different environments, different ley lines, different near water, things like that, then perhaps it would change, or like we might discover a pattern of something to these portals. So I do believe it's absolutely a possibility. And I would love to go more into this, but we are out of time almost. I do want to mention, so I had Paul Erickson, who had the new movie on Amazon, The Truth, released. And I was wondering if listeners would be interested in I could hold a watch party, because Amazon allows that. Obviously it would be free, but you do have to rent the movie yourself. It would be on a specific time, date, and then you could chat about as the movie was playing. It's only open to the first 100 listeners. So if that is something that people are interested in, you can go to my Facebook page, The Missing Piece with Trish, or Instagram, Missing Piece with Trish Mo. You can comment here on the station. Just let me know if that's something that would be of interest to people, and I can do that in the future for guests that I have on that have produced movies as well, so, or directed or acted in them. So I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. I've got some exciting guests coming on in the future. Be sure to like my Facebook, Instagram pages, as well as the radio station, UPRN. And also we have this subscription service on YouTube now for the radio station. So that's all exciting. There's a lot of things coming up this year, and I can't wait to share those with you. So again, thank you for joining me tonight. have a good night. And I am going to do more research on this green fireball theory. So